Hey everybody, it's Troy. Hey, listen, the GOP civil war is on and we are here for it. The most recent battleground being in the Senate among the Senate minority Republicans. Still sounds good to say that at their most recent luncheon, the Senate Republican luncheon, where tempers got a little heated and insults started to fly. At this meeting, McConnell was being challenged by other Republicans for his handling of the 2022 midterms on the Senate side. At one point, he stands up in the meeting and says that he's been taking a lot of criticism, but he hasn't seen anybody stand up to challenge his leadership. McConnell never officially been challenged for his leadership in the Senate. Rick Scott picks that exact moment to stand up and challenge Mitch McConnell to be the Republican leader in the Senate. At that point, the insults started flying. McConnell accused Scott of mismanaging his job at the National Republican Senatorial Committee, where his literal only job was to get Republican senators elected. So we know how well Rick Scott did in that job. McConnell also pissed that Scott had been criticizing the Senate Leadership Fund, the super PAC that McConnell managed to try and pour money into some of these Senate races. So it was really sort of a toss-up of who you're going to blame. Are you going to blame Rick Scott, who officially had the job of getting senators elected, or are you going to blame McConnell, who had the super PAC that was trying to pump money into these races? A lot of people accusing Mitch McConnell of misusing those funds and backing sort of non-MAGA candidates, sort of taking out his own personal revenge on Donald Trump by funding non-Trump Republicans. Scott accusing McConnell of keeping the Senate GOP leadership team in the dark. It just got super ugly, got super heated. Ted Cruz suggesting that they delay the leadership vote until the Herschel Walker election, so they have, all the members present, essentially. McConnell ended up winning the leadership vote, will be the Senate minority leader yet again, but Rick Scott stepping up and making his presence known, trying to take a bigger role in the Senate Republican leadership. Rick Scott, infamously one of the most corrupt members of Congress, one of the most corrupt members of the Senate. In his former life, he was the CEO of a for-profit private healthcare company that got slapped with 14 different felony fraud convictions from the Department of Justice, having to pay $2 billion in fines for stealing money from Medicare. One of the biggest Medicare fraud cases in the history of Medicare, in the history of the program. Now, of course, the Senate Republicans put him in charge of developing policy proposals for when the GOP retakes the Senate. And of course, first on the agenda for Rick Scott, defunding Medicare. Yes, literally, the Republicans put the guy who had one of the biggest Medicare fraud cases in the United States history. They put that guy in charge of Medicare, making policy for Medicare. And of course, Rick Scott is proposing to completely defund it and dismantle it. Mitch McConnell still reeling from his very public feud with Donald Trump after Trump sent out a post on his failing social media site, Truth Social, essentially threatening Mitch McConnell. First, he called Mitch McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, an extremely racist name. Then he went on to say that Mitch McConnell had a death wish, in all caps, Mitch McConnell becoming something of a persona non grata in the MAGA fascist Republican Party, the party controlled by Donald Trump. Donald Trump just announcing that he is running for president for a third time. He's going to be running for president in 2024. Mitch McConnell nearing the end of his long, illustrious career of obstruction and enabling the rise of Donald Trump, now feuding with Donald Trump and Donald Trump's MAGA fascist cult on Twitter and other places, accusing Mitch McConnell of being a traitor and selling out the Donald Trump MAGA fascist party. But McConnell, yet again, winning the leadership election to be the Senate minority leader. He will be in charge of Senate Republicans, yet again, setting the stage for even more feuds, even more division, even more infighting amongst an already divided GOP and already a Republican Party that's already going into civil war, fighting between the moderate faction and the MAGA faction. So many people trying to line up behind Donald Trump for another presidential run, blaming Mitch McConnell for all the ills of the Republican Party. Mitch McConnell now in charge of Senate Republicans. Mitch McConnell, yet again, put in charge of Senate Republicans at perhaps the most precarious time in the history of that party's leadership, dealing with an insurrectionist, traitorous con man in Donald Trump, who's fighting like hell to be the leader of that party. Mitch McConnell pushing back on all fronts, including pushing back against a rare challenge from corrupt Senator Rick Scott for his leadership in the Senate. But the GOP civil war is on. We are here for it. We are covering it, and we're all just sitting back here with our popcorn, savoring it as the GOP tears itself to pieces, trying to decide what its next move is after being absolutely humiliated in the midterm elections for supporting candidates backed by Donald Trump. For MeidasTouch, this is Troy. Remember, smash that subscribe button to keep supporting independent media.
MeidasTouch is unapologetically pro-democracy. And look, we know you are too. So please make sure you check out our best-selling shirt and our best-selling gear, the unapologetically pro-democracy gear. And hey, while you're at it, make sure you check out my favorite shirt and one of our most famous designs. It wasn't rigged, you're just a loser. At store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.